So this article is from Empire. It says Kathleen Kennedy reportedly stepping back from Lucasfilm this year. It says, what a year 2025 is proving to be for seismic regime changes. Last week came the official announcement that Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson are stepping back from Bond, and now reports are coming in that Kathleen Kennedy, a legendary producer and Amblin co-founder, will be stepping back as president of Lucasfilm later in 2025 as she prepares for retirement. No official announcement has been made, but Puck reports that Kennedy will be stepping down after 13 years of steering the company, a role which saw her lead the Star Wars and Indiana Jones franchises. Kennedy not only oversaw the return of Star Wars to the big screen in the sequel trilogy between 2015 and 2019, but also saw the saga move to Disney Plus across several streaming series, including The Mandalorian and Andor. She also oversaw the return of Indiana Jones in The Dial of Destiny. Prior to her work at Lucasfilm, Kennedy produced the likes of E.T., The Extraterrestrial, Gremlins, The Goonies, Jurassic Park, and Back to the Future. This year sees the release of Andor Season 2, while the upcoming Star Wars movie The Mandalorian and Grogu will hit big screens next summer. Beyond that, the likes of Ahsoka Season 2, James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi film, and the Rey-centric New Jedi Order film are in the pipeline. I'll include the full article linked below in the description box. A lot of people are talking about this. Obviously, it's big news in Star Wars fan circles for sure. I definitely think that Star Wars hasn't been best served under Disney since Disney took over Lucasfilm some years ago. But I think being realistic, the unpopular transformation that Star Wars went through in recent years under the stewardship of Kathleen Kennedy at Lucasfilm, I think if it hadn't been her, it likely would have been someone else. I mean, that should seem fairly obvious, considering that there have been other franchises like Star Trek and Doctor Who and James Bond and the MCU, which she has nothing to do with, which have also gone in a similar direction. I mean, maybe Kathleen Kennedy really did believe that the Force is female and all that kind of stuff, but I'm sure there was no shortage of producers in Hollywood who also believed something similar around that time. The reason I'm saying this is because there's no guarantee that a regime change will change much for Star Wars. The question becomes, what's left for the franchise now, and what might it become in the future? I'm going to get more into this topic right after this. But before I go very much further, a reminder that if you haven't already, be sure to check out my new novel available from the links below. It's called Deus v Machina. It's a sci-fi detective noir mystery set in Las Vegas in 2045. Cody Stockton is a PI who investigates an accidental death which turns out to be murder, and he ends up getting embroiled in a wider global conspiracy involving a totalitarian AI system and a deadly satanic cult. The story also involves the second coming of Christ, as the book deals with themes of technology versus spirituality and man's attempt to reconcile the two. Stockton must race to stop a diabolical plot while facing his own demons and having his convictions challenged. It's a story with twists, action, and big revelations. It's available from the links below in ebook, paperback, and audiobook formats. Pick up your copy today. Alright, so welcome back. One of the most regrettable aspects of the sequel Star Wars trilogy was the utter wasted opportunity of not having the core three main characters of Luke, Leia, and Han on screen at the same time. I mean, that's just what the fans wanted, and they couldn't even give them that. After a near-perfect ending in the 1983 film Return of the Jedi, these characters came back all broken, world-weary, jaded, and cynical. Luke's an unhappy, disillusioned hermit living alone on an island somewhere. Leia has been turned into a military girl boss, and herself and Han have broken up, thus ending a much-loved cinematic super couple, and Han is needlessly and pointlessly killed off. Why were Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and Harrison Ford even brought back for these films? I mean, these are supposed to be sequel trilogies, and yet their characters play secondary roles to entirely new, younger characters who lack the charisma and likability of their characters. It seems to me that Luke, Han, and Leia are just there as nostalgia bait for longtime Star Wars fans to encourage them to pay to see the films. And much of the rest of the films and TV shows over the last few years have been some form of prequel or other that continuously try to tap into the memory of the first three films. And it wasn't all bad, of course. You had the likes of Rogue One, that was alright. And The Mandalorian, at least, was good in the beginning. But there's been an unwillingness to move forward and embrace the future in this franchise. By no means am I suggesting that they should, let the past die, kill it if you have to kind of thing. Not at all. The past must be remembered, but the franchise can't keep this navel-gazing thing going. I mean, it's just constantly pining for the glory days, If this franchise is unable to move past the legacy of the events of the first 3 films, what's the point? I've said it before, I don't think Star Wars is in a particularly bad place, actually. And much of the damage that's been done, I think, is fixable. But what I think needs to happen is that they need to focus on the franchise strengths. I'm not really convinced that Star Wars works all that well on television. Star Wars is not Star Trek. To me, Star Wars will always be a movie franchise, first and foremost. And I think a lot of the issues could be corrected if there was one really good Star Wars film made by a hardcore Star Wars fan with a strong vision and passion for the project. I think Star Trek is actually in a worse condition right now because there's a lot more questions regarding canon and some things that have been made regrettably canon in Star Trek. But I think a lot of the goodwill that's been lost for Star Wars could return if they just focus on making one really good Star Wars movie and then stopping for at least a decade, which, let's be honest, is not something that Hollywood in its current configuration is going to do. Because every major franchise just feels like a horse, a poor, unfortunate dead horse getting flogged endlessly on the ground. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there for now. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.